Recording in progress.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be back with you tonight. I missed being with you last week, and I know that Anne did such a good job in my absence. So thank you to her, and I hope that you all got to watch her great presentation on managing hunger cues last week. It is June, so we are into our summer series, and the month of June is all about lifestyle medicine. We're going to talk about what that looks like tonight, but I just have to tell you, this is one of my favorite months of the entire year. I am passionate about the principles of lifestyle medicine, as is Dr. Shill. We base so much of what we do at Shill Med on principles of lifestyle medicine. So let's dive in and learn a little bit together about what that looks like. And I think you'll come away from this feeling excited and empowered about what this looks like in your life. So let's get started. I loved these facts this week. These are so fun. I actually used these last year at this time and hadn't looked at them since until this week. And it was such a fun refresher to go back to these facts. So look at this. According to the World Health Organization, 80% of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes, and 40% of cancer can be prevented with healthy lifestyle choices. Isn't that remarkable? That's amazing. Okay, here's a few others. This is such a fun one. High fruit and vegetable intake on one day predicts positive mood on the next day. How about that for motivation to eat your fruits and veggies, right? And just for reference, we're looking at, this is high numbers, but to notice the meaningful change in your positive mood, we're looking at 7 servings of fruit, 8 servings of vegetables. If that feels like a lot, we can dive in our visits. And also, as you start to implement Altera Health in coming months, this is a great place to utilize our dietitian to get some ideas for how to throw more fruits and veggies into the things that you're eating during the day. Now, also, there are studies that show that when you feel happier, you make more nutritious food choices. So you're going to reach for an apple instead of a donut if you're feeling happier rather than depressed. So this is a cycle, right? You choose more fruits and vegetables, and it improves your mood. I love that idea. Okay, so what is lifestyle medicine? We're looking at an evidence-based approach to treating and managing chronic disease. Now, I think it's important to note that the Academy of Lifestyle Medicine is made up of MDs and DOs. So this is a physician-based organization that uses research and evidence, just like the other fields of medicine, to treat chronic disease. But the difference is we're treating root causes and we're doing a lot of prevention, which is not super common in America as far as medicine goes. So we're treating root causes instead of symptoms, and that's really exciting and empowering. Okay, so we're going to frame tonight with this question, okay? We're considering that the standard approach to healthcare, and remember, our team is founded by a doctor and a nurse. We are medically trained and we are not anti-medicine. We're going to get to that in a minute. But if you think about the standard approach, and most of this is because the system is so overrun and doctors are so busy, a lot of times we resort to an increase in pills and medication and an increase in procedures. So I want you to think about someone in your life that you know, maybe it was previously you, who was on a whole laundry list of medications and always going into the doctor for procedures, for checkups. Are any of those people that you're imagining right now somebody that you would say looks really healthy to you? And I would assume that the answer for most of us is no. That's not what good health looks like. And yet, that's what is most of the time promoted in our healthcare system. Okay, so a few books to recommend if you're looking for something great. Admittedly, I haven't made it all the way through either one of these books, but I've done some research on these methods, and I have been able to make it through part of these books. I'm such a fan of both of these. This one here, this is Your Brain on Food, written by a doctor who's a psychiatrist from Harvard Medical School, but she's also a certified chef. And so she takes her knowledge of psychiatric medicine and combines it with her love of creating wonderful food. And she's done all kinds of extensive research on her patients on what it looks like to treat the brain with a diet. It's so fascinating. And she's like us. She's not anti-medicine by any stretch. She believes in medicine in certain cases, but she goes into great detail in this book about how to treat things, even things that we don't think is treatable. We're talking without medications, right? Even even bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, she's seeing symptoms lessen and change just with diet changes, which I think is so exciting and fascinating. She also actually had a run with cancer herself and was on chemotherapy for quite a while. And she talks in this book about how she was able to significantly lessen the symptoms of the nausea and all of the side effects of chemotherapy because of the strict diet she put herself on. So just some food for thought, pun intended, to think about how diet can really affect so many aspects of our life. Okay, so moving on, another medically trained doctor, Kelly Brogan. She wrote this book, A Mind of Your Own. She actually has several books out. And she, I believe, practices out of Oregon, and she has a thriving medical practice where she's treating, I think she's a psychiatrist as well. Yes, Dr. Shill is nodding to me. She's a psychiatrist as well. And she treats the whole gamut of severe mental disorders, including, again, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, some of these more serious ones, and also depression and anxiety. And her approach with her patients is, because she's become so popular, because she's so successful at what she does, she will not even see a patient for their initial visit until they have undergone a rigorous diet and exercise overhaul. And what she's finding is that putting people on the right foods and the right exercise programs is drastically reducing their symptoms of mental illness. So it's something to consider. I find both of these doctors so fascinating in their approach. Okay, so again, let's wrap up with what we're talking about here. Lifestyle medicine, we're treating the cause and not the symptom. We're working on prevention, and we're working on shifting our lifestyle to be healthy so that it influences all other aspects of our health. We're actually curing and healing diseases instead of just masking symptoms with medications and procedures that need to continue to be done. Again, please understand we're not anti-procedure. Those are necessary, especially screening procedures. We're not anti-medication, but if we're in this cycle of needing them over and over again instead of using them to bridge forward, that's where we get into trouble. We want treatment to be temporary and not chronic. We want you to get off your medications wherever possible. And we want to improve your quality of life and make this a long-term shift to better health and better mental and physical health. And I love that idea. So we've kind of already discussed this, but what lifestyle medicine is not, we're not strictly naturopathic in the sense that we're not using medication or using alternate methods. This is strictly let's focus on your lifestyle shifts and use medications and procedures as a bridge to a healthier lifestyle where needed, not a destination. I love that idea. Okay, so now let's look at the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. Some of these are going to be obvious to you, especially these first couple that we've talked so extensively about already. Some of them might surprise you, but if you look at these 6 as puzzle pieces that fit together, if you are in a healthy balance in all 6 of these areas, you're going to be living a pretty healthy lifestyle. So those 6 pillars are nutrition, physical activity, eliminating substance abuse, quality sleep, social connection. I love that one. And probably my favorite is stress reduction. We're going to talk a little bit about each of those and what they look like and why they're so important and how they work together. So let's start off with number 1, good nutrition. Well, we spent the entire month of May talking about good nutrition, didn't we? We had 5 weeks, including a fabulous guest speaker, and we learned all kinds of things together about what good nutrition looks like. So let's just do a quick review. To sum it up, we're looking at heavy plant-based diets. If you know us well, you know that we're not ever going to be strictly plant-based. We think that protein coming from animal sources is important for a lot of the amino acids that it provides and also the variety in your diet. So we're not suggesting a vegan diet here, but we are suggesting that a large portion of what you eat should come from things that are grown, because that's the best way to get the nutrients that your body needs in a wide variety. We're also looking at high protein. We actually suggest higher protein levels because of Dr. Shill's extensive training in internal medicine. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. And obesity medicine. He has access to the latest research, which shows that the protein numbers need to be higher than what most nutrition experts are saying. So if you're looking at what you find on the internet, excuse me for just a second. If you're looking at what you find on the internet and it's lower than what Dr. Shill is suggesting, please understand that you can trust his expertise here because he has access to the latest research specifically related to weight management. We talked extensively about what those protein sources can look like. And if you have questions, again, those are great questions to ask in your appointments, as well as with our dietitian online at Altera Health. And if those of you who are out there wondering when you get access to Altera Health, that's something to bring up with Dr. Shill in your next appointment. That is coming as we roll that out this summer. We want to cut back on high-calorie beverages, added sugar, and processed foods. And we're eating the rainbow. So a wide variety of colors. And then also, look at what a good example I'm being as I try to ward off my cough right now. 80 to 100 ounces of water per day is what we recommend, which feels like a lot. But once you get in the habit of it, it becomes a lot easier. Okay, so remember that we've moved away from the food pyramid and we're really looking at My Plate now. I love My Plate for the simplicity that it provides. But you think about, I love what Whitney said a couple of weeks ago. We're going to review this in a second, but I just want to take note of this. She said, stop worrying about calories in quantity and start worrying about what your calories are made up of. We learned a few weeks ago that we want calories that are rich in protein, complex carbohydrates, the right kinds of fat in the right quantities, fruits, vegetables, the right kind of dairy for the calcium, and healthy fats, and then vitamins and minerals, and then enough water, which I'm going to drink more of now. Okay, so let's recap on Whitney Gibson. You didn't get to hear her interview. This was 2 weeks ago, and she was fabulous. She worded things in such an articulate manner and brought up so many great points that I learned so much from. So I encourage you to go back and watch that if you missed it. She talked about understanding macronutrients. And if you don't know what macronutrients are, we're basically talking about protein, fats, and carbohydrates, and finding the right balance of those in your diet. Excuse me. Focusing on that balance can help us make healthier choices. And as you move out of the OptiFast phase into the nutrition phase, we're going to help you know what that looks like specifically and help you with those meal plans. We're going to stop focusing on calories as a number that we just mentioned this, right? Instead, focus what the calories are made of. Broaden your horizons, try new foods. Remember that it takes 6 or 7 times of the new food, oftentimes for your taste to adjust, but you can pull in more of those micronutrients when you're willing to try new foods. And then focus on the discipline of consistent choices. This was a big one that she struck on that I was particularly impressed with. Give yourself grace. There's no room for shaming, but practice consistent choices wherever you can. And that will be the slow and simple and consistent lifestyle changes that will end up getting you to that place where you are reducing your chronic diseases and your risk of chronic diseases and your physical and mental health improve and all of those things. That is our ultimate goal. Okay, pillar number 2, physical activity. So the whole month of April, right? We all walked to the lake together, and wasn't that a fun challenge? We learned a lot about physical activity in the month of April. And so here's a recap on what we learned. We want to get moving. We got to move our bodies in ways that are sustainable for you. So that means find something that's enjoyable, right? That you're going to consistently want to do, that you're going to find joy in. Then identify an activity that's challenging for you. Sorry, guys, it's every time I take a breath. Identify one activity you haven't tried yet that sounds interesting. Same principle as the nutrition, right? You're looking for trying new things that are going to be able to be incorporated into your long-term lifestyle. And make a plan. And in your workbooks, you'll remember, if you flip back, there were some templates for you to make those plans of how to incorporate those exercises into your routine. Sorry, I haven't coughed all day. Okay, on weightlifting. Remember, we learned about strength training. We're looking at 1 to 3 sets of 10 different exercises. So we're looking at maybe 15 to 35 minutes, which feels like a lot, but really you're only doing it a couple of times a week because you're letting your muscles rest in between. This can actually increase your resting energy 5% or approximately 100 calories per day. So remember, we're talking about that number on that in-body scan that tells you what your resting metabolic rate is, which is the fat you're burning in your sleep. I mean, who's excited about that, right? And those strength training exercises boost that number. So they can do that actually for 3 days after your workout, which is, to me, great motivation. Okay, if you'll remember in April, we talked to our expert, Shawn Johnson. She walked us through one of her Lift in 15 workouts. I want to just give her a shout out again and remind you that if you haven't gone in to see her, she gives you a free initial consult and training session. My husband's getting me a cough drop. Sorry about that. And she works with slow motion, high intensity lifting that can minimize the risk of injury and the time spent lifting while maximizing your results. Okay. So, the thing I love about going to see Shauna, and I've been going to see her weekly for the last couple of months, I love that I can get in and get a really intense workout where I'm building my muscles. And I can do that in 15 minutes and then walk back out the door and be with my kids. She just lives a few minutes from my house, and so it's really convenient for me. But even if she lives a little further away from you, consider the value in a 15-minute workout that helps build those muscles. She also emphasized again for us, which we've emphasized so many times, that muscle building is such an important part of your fitness routine. We often think that cardio is the answer, but when it comes to long-term weight management, muscle building is essential for healthy aging, reducing your risk of falls, increasing your stability, burning fat at higher rates because you're increasing your metabolism. It also regulates hormones, it regulates mood. It makes you feel good about yourself because you feel stronger, even if you don't love it in the moment. The benefits of investing a few hours a week into strength training are immense. So I encourage you to, whether it's with Sean or a gym of your choice, to incorporate muscle building into your routine. Okay, so now let's move on to eliminating substance abuse. This one's pretty straightforward, so we don't spend a lot of time on this one. We know that addictive substances are harmful to our brains and our bodies. So tobacco products should be eliminated because we know that they increase the risk of cancer and heart disease by quite a bit. Alcohol consumption should be limited to decrease risk of heart disease and avoid unnecessary empty calories. One of the biggest culprits for unnecessary calories is alcoholic beverages. Now, if you're someone that likes to go out with friends and enjoy alcoholic beverages on occasion, we just encourage you to be wise in your consumption and to make it an exception, not a rule, not something you do regularly, just like we would with nutrition, in the sense that things that are low in nutritious quality are not something that we want to consume on the regular. Okay. Quality sleep. One of my favorites to talk about, one of my hardest to do. Full transparency. So let's review what we learned in the month of April when we talked about quality sleep. Quality sleep restores and heals essentially every system in our body. This is why I love to talk about this. I'm going to make this bigger so you can read these small words. Okay, think about what we learned about how it heals and restores our immune system, our nervous system. It restores, who hasn't experienced the mental and emotional health restoring? I thankfully have gotten wise enough in my life to recognize that when I'm feeling really down and discouraged, I usually need to sleep. And usually when I reset my system and wake up the next morning, I'm ready to go again. That doesn't solve every mental health crisis. I'm not saying that. But so actually, I did hear a report about a year ago from a physician that said he never had a suicidal patient that was getting good quality sleep. So, I do think that quality sleep plays a huge role in our mental health. So that's something to consider. Cardiovascular system, cellular levels, our cells are literally regenerating and healing on a cellular level when we sleep. Our memory is better. My husband will attest to that. That's his big one, is he says, I cannot think clearly and I cannot remember anything when I don't get enough sleep. Our hormones are regulated. Our fluid status is balanced. Our metabolic system, our cancer-fighting cells, our protein synthesis and DNA. Literally every system of our body needs our sleep to be able to restore and heal and repair. So if that's not motivation, right? I actually love this slide so much. It made me laugh out loud when I saw it. But here's our review of what to do if you're struggling with quality sleep. We have to influence our daily habits. And this can be overwhelming for me sometimes. I think, okay, so great. So in order to get good sleep, I literally have to be on the ball all day long. And the truth is that's yes and no, right? The daily habits definitely influence our sleep. However, it's not an excuse when you get to bedtime. Well, my day was terrible, so there's just no hope for my sleep either. There are still things you can do. We're also practicing good bedtime habits. And then middle of the night habits, what you do when you wake up in the middle of the night. Are you getting up and reading? Are you getting up and watching TV? Are you getting up and working? What you do when you do have trouble sleeping. is going to greatly influence. If you want more information on this, go back and watch our webinar on this because it adds so many specific good tips that can help with that. You want to be as consistent as possible with your bedtimes and routines. And if you need help breaking the cycle, if you're just in the cycle where you can't sleep and then you're more stressed and then you're more stressed and you can't sleep, this is a place where we can use medication as a bridge to get you to a place where you can get good enough sleep so that you can kind of break out of some of these cycles. I really truly believe, and this is going to sound hypocritical because I struggle with it, that all good changes start with good sleep. My husband and I, over and over again, when we're struggling to make the changes we want to in our life, we always go back to sleep. We've got to get our sleep routine in place first. And I really firmly believe that. Okay, my last two are my favorite two. Social connection. Do you ever stop to think that your connection with other people is an important factor to maintaining good health? It really is. And I'm going to show you how. This is so fun. Our brains are actually wired to connect, and our level of connection actually affects our health because oxytocin is a chemical that's released into our brain, and it happens when we're bonding with other humans. It is a literal chemical reaction. Okay, so look at this, though. This is so cool. This is some research that I found on this. Evidence suggests that those with strong social connections actually have better controlled blood sugars. They have better controlled BMIs. They have higher cancer survival rates. They have decreased cardiovascular mortality rates, meaning they have less death related to cardiovascular disease, heart disease, decreased depression and mental illness, better mitigation of PTSD symptoms, increased overall mental health, and lower blood pressures. Isn't that interesting? That doesn't mean that if you know somebody or close to somebody that's struggling with any of these things, that you're not doing a good enough job with social connection, because there are certainly so many factors that go into each of these morbidities that we're talking about. However, if we're looking at just straight across statistics, overall, social connection with other people makes a difference in all of these numbers. I think that's fascinating. Okay, I want to read this to you. A study in 1979 showed that people with strong social ties were 3 times less likely to die than those who are less connected to others. They actually found that close social ties were a protective factor with regard to health. People who had unhealthy habits such as smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity, but embraced close social ties lived longer than those who had more health-promoting habits but lacked important social connections. That was dense in words, but essentially, even people with super unhealthy habits like smoking are living longer than people who are doing everything right but are not connected to other people. Isn't that fascinating that it has that much effect on your health? Okay, so you may be one of the people that's sitting here thinking, but what if I'm an introvert and I don't like to be around people? I know a lot of people like that. They just really love their alone time. There's nothing wrong with that. Introverts and extroverts are really just different ends of the same scale, meaning extroverts need recharge time, just like introverts need social connection. And you can decide for yourself where you are on that scale and what your needs are. But no matter how introverted you feel you are, you still need social connection with people. You still need your people. So, how can you find that social connection? You might be thinking, this sounds great, but I am struggling in this department. Okay, so first of all, find your community. Get yourself out there. Even if this is hard for you, find people with common interests, whether that's professional interests, whether that's, if you're part of a church, jump in with both feet wherever you're at and find a common cause with people that you can relate to. The great thing about where you're at today is that you have joined a community. And the great thing that I have to tell you is that unlike a year ago, when we were just kind of starting out, when I gave this webinar a year ago, we actually have things in place that we didn't have before. So every 3 months, we're doing new, what was the word I want? Challenges. Thank you. We're doing new challenges where we're doing community activities, like when we did our Walk with the Shills Day. If you're looking for community, come walk with us. You know, one of the things that we've started doing that's become pretty successful is we're starting to do group visits every other week. We actually had one this afternoon. Some of you might have been there. We're going to do another one in 2 weeks. It's every other Thursday at 4 p.m. And what you can do is you can come and do a group visit with Dr. Shill, and you can sit and visit with other people who are doing OptiFast or who are doing our program. and you can relate to people who have the same struggles and triumphs that you do. And so this is a great place to find social connection and community with like-minded people and people who are going through similar challenges. Start with identifying what social support you need and who is available currently to fill those roles. If you don't know, then look for help. We can help you address this problem. And we're actually going to do a webinar at the end of the month that's completely addressing social connection and stress management. And then, it's interesting how little culturally we interact with people throughout the day. But have you ever thought about how much it means to you when a random stranger just says hello to you or starts up a conversation? I am never offended by that. I always think, man, why aren't there more people that do this? Why don't I do this more? So just look for opportunities to connect with people, even if it's just in the line at the grocery store or in the waiting room of the doctor's office or at the airport, wherever you are, look for opportunities to connect, and it will actually improve your health. Okay, let's end tonight by talking about stress management. This is another one of my favorite ones. I'm fascinated by this, and it's also something that I'm learning in real time. But I love some of the implications of this, and so let's walk through this. And I'm actually going to go a lot more in depth in this topic at the end of the month. But here's kind of an overview. Okay, so first thing is we have to understand the difference between healthy stress versus unhealthy stress. I like this quote that says, if you find a path with no obstacles, it probably doesn't lead anywhere. I mean, that's true, right? We have to have a level of healthy stress to propel us forward towards our goals in life. So just kind of like, I know this is a small diagram here at the bottom, but we're looking at optimal performance is right in the middle of this diagram. And, on the one side is like we're bored and we're depressed and we're not doing anything. We're sitting on the couch in the dark and we're just totally unmotivated and we don't have any stress, but we're also depressed, right? On the other end of this is we're so anxious that it's bottling us up inside and we can't function because we're too anxious to be able to move forward. So we oftentimes think of stress as a bad thing, but what we really want is to be in that functional level of stress where stress is motivating to us and helping us move forward and achieve our goals. Studies show that 50 to 80% of illness has stress-related aspects. Can you believe that? Isn't that fascinating? We're talking about lifestyle medicine here. Sorry, my 4-year-old's having a little trouble. And, the American Academy of Family Physicians actually reports that 2/3 of their appointments are for stress-related causes. Think about the implications of stress. Now, again, you think about that curve that we just saw. We're talking about the unhealthy levels of stress, not the healthy stress, right? Okay, so when we're looking at this is just a really broad overview. We're looking at the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic. When you go to any kind of nursing or medical school, the very simple way to explain sympathetic versus parasympathetic, if you're not familiar, sympathetic is your adrenaline-based system. This is your fight or flight response where your body kicks into high gear to respond to a stressful situation, right? And generally, the knee-jerk reaction is either to stay and fight or to run away, right? You think about like a bear attacking you, and you're either, are you going to fight it or are you going to run? Either way, your stress hormones are pumping pretty good. Your parasympathetic response is the balancing act to that, and that's what we call rest and digest, right? So our body swings back and forth between the two, and it has to. And where we get into really unhealthy stress, a lot of times, is where we get stuck in the fight or flight mode. And if you find that you're easily triggered, quick to anger, overreacting to things on a regular basis, it's probably because your system is stuck on loop in this fight or flight mode. And that was really empowering to me the day that I learned that, and I could start to recognize that in myself and then start to treat that. Okay, I'm in fight or flight. How do I bring down the cortisol levels and the adrenaline levels and kind of balance that out? That was really helpful for me. In this particular diagram, we're really referring more to the stimulation pathways versus the digestive pathways, because as you know, you're not doing a lot of digesting when you're in flight mode, right? So either way, even though stress is associated with the sympathetic nervous system, it can affect both systems. So you've probably already read through this list while I've been talking, but just some basic understanding of this. Sympathetic nervous system, we're talking about stress-related causes of increased cortisol in our body. This cortisol is the stress hormone that can also decrease our immune system. So you wonder why you get sick when you're stressed. It's because those stress hormones actually suppress your immune system. It can cause lack of sleep. It can suppress your saliva. Isn't that interesting? Because you can't be drooling when you're running away from a bear, so your saliva shuts off and that can cause other problems. So we talked about immune suppression. It speeds up your heartbeat, increases your blood pressure, which is great if you're running from a bear. It's not great if you're sitting on your couch with high blood pressure all day long, right? It can suppress your digestion, which again is great if you're running from a bear, not great if you're constipated all the time. But you think about, we have a very good friend who's a gastroenterologist, and many of you see him. But the amount of patients that he sees for GI symptoms that are stress related is unreal. You would be amazed at how much of a gastroenterologist's work is related to stress, because stress affects your digestive system on such a huge level. So we won't go through all of these, but basically you're seeing the opposite effect on both sides of similar symptoms, right? Okay, so the mind-body connection, right? We know that our brains affect our physical symptoms. And so when you hear somebody say it's all in your head, it's offensive, right? Because what that sounds like is I'm making all of my symptoms up. But the reality of it is your brain is making you feel pain and causing problems within your body that are not actually physical problems. They are related to what is happening in your brain. And that is a real thing. It is a real physical thing that's happening in your body. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is you look through this list of all of the ways that our brain can affect our body. And this list is essentially talking about how our mental health can actually contribute to any one of these diseases, right? So the point, as we go back to this idea of lifestyle medicine, is that managing our stress in healthy ways is an essential component to living a healthy lifestyle, to managing our physical chronic conditions, because stress management can actually take away so many of these. I'll just share one other thing while we're on this. Years ago, I was asked to be a community health nurse for our church's missionary department in our area in Iowa. And I was in charge medically of about 250 young adults from ages about 18 to 24, most of them being about 18 to 20. And the idea was, they're fresh out of their houses, they're far away from home. They would call me for any physical problems that they were having. And I did have a medical director that was a doctor that was over 9 different areas. So 9 different nurses that would call into him if they needed expert advice. Luckily, I lived with a doctor, and so I didn't need to call him too often. I actually sent them to my doctor quite a bit. But what I learned from that experience was amazing. I had missionaries calling these young people, 18 to 20-year-olds, calling me all day long, talking about how they were having all of this stomach pain, all of these nauseous symptoms. Sometimes they were even vomiting. And at first I was just panicked. And I was sending people in to check for black mold in their apartments. And I was calling the missionary department across the country and saying, can I get approval to send these missionaries in for colonoscopies and endoscopies and all this stuff? And they would push back on me and they would say, try counseling first. And I thought, you're kidding me. This is this person's throwing up every day. Like there's black mold in their apartment or, whatever was happening. And every time they'd say, just try counseling first. And I will tell you, it was the craziest thing. 95% of the time their symptoms went away with counseling. I could not believe it. Now, that doesn't mean that every GI condition is that easily treated, but in these young 18 to 20-year-olds that were far away from home and experiencing high levels of stress, their GI symptoms were almost always related to stress and mental health. So I know that this is true because I've experienced it in real time in large numbers. Okay, we are actually going to skip this, and we're going to go over a lot of this at the end of the month. So I'm going to just skip to the end here. First of all, I wanted to show you this quote by Einstein. I love this. And I want you to remember this. I'm going to bring this up again at the end of the month. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. I mean, think about that for a minute, right? How often do we try to solve our problems without changing the way we think about things? So think for a minute. What stressor in your life can you eliminate or manage differently this week? And you know what? Managing your stress, I'm going to tell you right now, is going to take some major cuts in your life. It's going to take some sacrifices. You're going to have to be okay with letting something go for the sake of your mental and physical health. It will require you to make sacrifices, and we're going to have to accept that. But it's going to be worth it. So think about, how can I make a change so that I'm not trying to manage my stress doing all of the same things? Okay, let's end with this. How does it all fit together? I want you to see this visually. If we have good nutrition, if we're working on our nutrition, it's going to naturally increase our physical activity. We're going to feel better. We're going to feel more motivated. We're going to get outside and move more. We're going to decrease our substance abuse because we're looking at the quality of our calories, right? It's going to improve our sleep, and it's going to decrease our stress. We talked about that at the beginning, didn't we? More fruits and vegetables lead to a happier life. We're just happier when we're eating better. And we talked about that with the 2 books that we talked about, right? Is that we're literally curing depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder with the food that we eat. And the reason for that, I'm not going to go into great detail on that tonight, but one of the reasons for that is that we sometimes call the gut the second brain, because there are so many receptors in our digestive system that release the chemicals into our brain that make us feel happier. Isn't that crazy? So literally, there are chemical processes going on in your gut that are influencing the chemicals going to your brain. That is great motivation. Okay, when we're moving more and lifting more, we're getting better nutrition, because, man, when you lift weights and you feel great, or when you go out and you move and you walk, you're going to reach for an apple, not a donut when you get back most of the time, aren't you? Now, if you let an hour go by without eating, then you're going to be like, now I want the donut. So I'm not saying that never happens, but the natural cause and effect of moving more is eating better. It's just how it is. When you're moving more, 100% you're going to get better sleep. And when you're moving more, you're going to decrease your stress and improve your mental health. Because again, the chemicals that you release into your brain when you move are a natural mood lifter. That's chemically what's happening in your body. Okay, we're going to decrease substance abuse. That's going to improve our nutrition right there. We're also going to sleep better. And it's also going to decrease our stress long term. Now, I know what you're thinking. If you're somebody that reaches for the substances, no judgment, everybody's got their coping mechanisms. You're thinking, no, it actually reduces my stress to drink. And it does temporarily. But it's like every other coping mechanism, it's a temporary fix, right? And long term, it's actually going to increase your stress. So that's a place, finding that discipline to take the short-term sacrifices for the long-term payouts is essential. Okay, so now we're going to kind of cycle back through, right? When we increase our sleep, it's so much easier to eat healthy when you're not tired, isn't it? That's why it's so hard late at night, because we're exhausted. We're reaching for that food for a coping mechanism. First thing in the morning, I always eat better. When we sleep better, we're more motivated to move. We feel better, right? It's a lot easier to exercise. We're going to increase our social connection and improve our social connection when we've gotten enough sleep. We're nicer. We don't take things as, we actually talked about this in our sleep webinar. We actually take things much more negatively when we haven't gotten enough sleep. Like, just, that's how our brains operate. And 100%, you increase your sleep, you decrease your stress. Straight across correlation. Okay, when we increase our connection, we're going to improve our nutrition and our physical activity. We're going to decrease substance abuse, because a lot of times substance abuse happens privately, right? We're going to improve our sleep and decrease our stress. That's all research-based. Weird and crazy, I know, but improved social connection improves all of the rest of the things. And then can't stress this enough. When we decrease and manage our stress, you think about that for a second. When your stress is lower, you can take on all of these other pieces. When your stress is lower, you can improve your nutrition, you can improve your physical activity, because you have the energy and the mindset to be able to do that. You're not going to be as drawn to substance abuse and other addictive coping mechanisms. You're going to improve your sleep. Absolutely. How many people's sleep problems are stress related, right? and you're going to increase connection. Your connection will be better the lower your stress is because you're not freaking out at everybody, right? I mean, I'm guilty of that, right? When you get stressed, you take it out on the people that are closest to you. So, the place to start, honestly, I think, decrease your stress, improve your sleep, and then the rest of this becomes so much easier. So, isn't lifestyle medicine fun? This is so empowering to me, I think, because I look at these 6 pillars and I think, 6 things. Yeah, I can do that, you know? And I'm not perfect at any of them. I guess I'm pretty perfect at no substance abuse right now. But, I shouldn't have said that. That was weird. Yes. Anyways, moving on. But I feel like I look at this list and I think, yeah, I can do that. We can work on 6 things and we can get those into a nice, healthy balance to where I can live a life that I'm proud of and that I feel good about and where I'm healthy physically and mentally. So, as we explore these together this month, remember that your future is bright. We love working with you and taking you to that bright future. We just got the most wonderful letter today from a previous patient who talked about how his life is 100% different today than when he started with us, how the diseases he was concerned about have been completely reversed, and how his doctors are all amazed at how they're not concerned about him anymore for all of the chronic health conditions that he was previously worried about. And literally, we're in the business of changing lives, not just today, but for the long term. So look forward to your bright future. If you're slogging through the middle of it, there's hope ahead, and we'll help you get there. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We can't wait to talk next week about, I have some fabulous, so exciting material to cover with you about improving your lifestyle and how we practically put some of this to use. And I just received a word that Dr. Shill is going to come on camera with a special message just for you.
Hi, everybody. I forgot to tell Emily this before she started the webinar tonight. So before she signs off, I just wanted to let you know we received notice today from OptiFast that they are completely out of stock of the peanut butter bars that they sell going forward. We still have some in stock. We still have apple cinnamon in stock, and we've placed a rather large stocking order today. But if you are considering making a large purchase of OptiFast, I did review the numbers of what's left in the warehouse and the supplies are dwindling. So reach out to us. We're happy to help you get on a trial for a few days of the new products, or go into that Coach Care store and place an order today or tomorrow. They're going to run out long before the end of July, I anticipate, of all products. So if you're thinking about placing a stocking order to continue on OptiFast, please place that order soon. And anyway, thank you for joining us all tonight. The future is bright.